Hello everybody, how's it going today? Glowplasma 221 here, back in daytime about Weekly Shonen Jump, issue number 15 of good old 2025. And man, what an interesting issue of Weekly Shonen Jump we have here today. Honestly, this issue isn't going to go down as like my favorite issue of the year or really anything in that manner. Like, hey, I thought this issue was fine, I thought it was good, it was entertaining, but it really just like wasn't like last week where it's like, man, I really enjoyed every issue that we had here in Shonen Jump, every chapter we had and all of that. But honestly, the more I sit down and think about it, the more I realize that we really don't need issues that are so high octane and constantly amazing, the best of their series every week. Because sometimes we need the build up that really goes to making what these series what they are, and it's that build up that makes the payoff all the much better at the end of the day. And that is what I think this issue of Weekly Shonen Jump, of course, like I mentioned, issue number 15, I think this issue is really good for the build up of all of the various series, pretty much saying like, hey, this is where we're going. We're getting to a certain point, so when the payoff comes, everything will be so much better. Now, a little bit of a note on this issue, Weekly Shonen Jump. Ichi the Witch has the magazine cover this week, and as we will be talking about whenever we sit down and start talking about Ichi the Witch, it has like 5 color pages, which is just something that's like really weird and interesting. But the issue cover this week, which I've realized this is not something I've done here on this year's issue of the show yet, because back when I did this show in 2023 for about, what was that, like 20 issues or so, I would always like bring up what the magazine cover was and all that various stuff, and I sort of realized that I sort of like gotten away from that. Like I literally just like start the video and then just talk about all the various manga chapters, which I mean is the point of this, but I also sort of like want to give the context about what's going on here in the time of manga besides for all of these various chapters. I mean, like, yeah, the date this issue came out on, like, hey, it came out on the 9th of March of 2025 here in the United States, and most of the English-speaking world, of course, it came out on the 10th in Japan, being like, hey, we get Weekly Shonen Jumps like midday on a Sunday here, wherever I'm from at least, and in Japan, it's like, hey, they get it midnight on Monday, and that's when Jump comes out, right? So that's the whole thing there. Ichi the Witch had a magazine cover. It's a really awesome magazine cover with both Ichi and the World Hater magic on it, and as we'll sort of see in this Ichi the Witch chapter, not really any of that gets necessarily mentioned, but hey, still a cool thing nonetheless. Really, I don't think there's anything else I need to sort of like talk about, like, administration-wise, but either way, today we have 14 series to talk about on Weekly Shonen Jump. Of course, you can read all of my abbreviations here on the screen. I am not going to read them out. We will be talking about them. If you want to see any part of the video, if you want to hear my talk about Embers, for instance, just like go quick in and like find Sidcraft, and you'll be like, oh, here is Sidcraft. Let me go one more, and it will be Embers, or Star Beethoven. I'm too far. Like, you can just like see the order I'm going to talk about all of these things in it too. I also don't know if I've mentioned this. This is the order I also read Weekly Shonen Jump in. So like, I don't just like talk about it in this way. I also read Weekly Shonen Jump in this order every single week. I don't know if that's just me being weird or what. Like, I know the whole idea is like, hey, the TOC, like you read the manga in Japan, like you open it up, see whatever the first chapter is, read it, and then just continue reading all the way back to the very end. That's not how I read it, being it's just like a bunch of icons on a screen. I do it this way, but hey. Alas, if you guys don't know how this show works, I'm pretty much going to sit down, talk about all 14 of these Weekly Shonen Jump chapters, pretty much to be like, hey, these are my thoughts on it. Some of them are going to be longer, some of them are going to be shorter. It's just how this show goes. At the very end of the video, we're going to rank all of them from what I thought was the best chapter of the week, all the way down to the worst chapter of the week, and everything else in between. And of course, we'll be picking my favorite character of the week, and any of that other interesting stuff going on there. So yeah, with all of that out of the way, I don't see any reason why we just can't go ahead and get started with, of course, the first chapter of the week, which is none other than Kagurabachi. Now, of course, I do Kagurabachi chapter reviews on the channel, and I've already actually, about 2 hours ago, I actually recorded the Kagurabachi chapter number 71 review, which is, of course, what this chapter of Kagurabachi is, and be on the lookout for that video. It should be up before this Weekly Shonen Jump video goes live, so it should be up on the YouTube channel, and also if you're listening to this on podcasting platforms and all that, like, hey, go check out the YouTube channel. It's pretty cool. But either way, Kagurabachi was this really awesome chapter this week, all about Samura and Iori's relationship. Of course, we met Iori's mother, whose name is Inori, and we pretty much saw the relationship that, hey, Inori ended up having to go into a hospital. It seems like she had some sort of condition that we honestly aren't too privy to, but that made Samura have to sort of interact and reconnect with his daughter, Iori, and the two of them, we pretty much saw, like, told way of, like, hey, here's how they started to get along through, like, these sort of, like, little mini rivalries they'd have with each other, all in the hopes of pleasing Inori at the end of the day. And eventually, Inori ends up passing on, and it's this big moment where, like, hey, Iori is very, very sad about this. Of course, like, yeah, this girl just lost her mother. Like, that's a really, really big deal. And eventually moving into the whole idea of, like, hey, Samura feels really bad about what he did to Inori in the past, of like his bloodstained hands and how he thought he couldn't handle having a daughter, when he sort of realizes that he can, and he has a daughter who he really loves very much. I mean, we know that from the whole idea that Samura sort of like sealed Iori away, like even forgetting her from his memories, for the whole idea of like, hey, I didn't want to have to remember all this, right? And then moving into all of the various ideas of like, hey, now it looks like Yora, the leader of the Hishaku, is here, and that he's got some ideas like, hey, here's how the world will be destroyed here, and the great calamity that'll be coming again, like the lot that you sins committed. And it's like, okay, what is actually everything going on here? It's so interesting to be like, oh, what is really Samura going to do here? And like, hey, what is... I mean, there's so much here that's getting like built up, so it's like, okay, again, the build-up to the payoff we'll be getting later on, and just a really good chapter of Kagurabachi, one that I definitely loved for sure. Next up is One Piece, and I'm gonna be real, this wasn't my favorite One Piece chapter by any stretch of the imagination. Let me just go and open it up here. The chapter is titled 142, What I'm Afraid Of, and this whole chapter is pretty much revolving around like, okay, all of the various students here at the school drew images on pieces of paper of what they were afraid of. And then all of these beasts start coming to life and terrorizing all of the various students of the Elbaf country, pretty much at the Walrus School, right? We see that the one of the former giant pirates named Tusk, who is the principal of this school, it seems like he may have eaten like a walrus devil fruit or something, I'm not really so sure. And of course, Saul, who we all know and love, they both come through and save all the students from one of these guys. And then one of these guys, Mr. Wolf, and one of the gym teachers here at the school, ends up like touching one of the giants and like gets bloody all over, and it doesn't look like he's doing very good. All of the children are also like asleep and are sort of like moseying away from this entire ordeal, and like stuff like, hey, what's actually going on here? And then the very end of the chapter is one of the other teachers being like, hey, I asked all the students what they were scared of, and it looks like all of their drawings have come alive on the Elbaf landscape. And we see all of these weird, crazy creatures. I mean, we see like a drawing of the sun god Nico. We see just all of these various things just sort of just sitting here. And we also then cut down to see what Loki's up to. He pretty much just like takes Ragnir, his hammer, goes down and slings it into the tree atom, which makes like a lightning strike there on the second. And like a part of the world tree atom just starts to burn. And it's like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? And then the whole very end of the chapter is we see, of course, St. Killingham and St. Somers, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's what his name is. We see St. Somers being like, hey, to know love is the wild one. And like, hey, say, Gunko, are you afraid of anything? And Gunko is like, yes, Nika. And that is where we end this chapter of One Piece. Again, this is the whole thing of like, hey, we're building up to something. Honestly, I didn't like this chapter of One Piece that much. We're going to put it pretty far down the list. So it's like, yes, I enjoy whenever One Piece sort of does all this, but like, I just personally wasn't feeling this chapter, and that was really that right there, right? Ichi the Witch is up next, and like I mentioned earlier, Ichi the Witch has the magazine cover this week, which also means that, of course, it has the initial color page, and also the, a color title page, which is a really beautiful one, really getting a good look at Goku Raku, Ichi, Kumagi, and Descross, pretty much the crew who we are going to be knowing going forward, because, of course, like, yes, Goku Raku is going to be part of the Ichi's crew going forward. I mean, it's only, like, that's what they said. Like, Ichi's going to acquire a sleeping magic, which does get brought up in this chapter along with all this other stuff. I absolutely love Ichi the Witch. And also, like, hey, we know what Goku Raku's hair color is. I thought it was just like, yeah, he's got like a little bit of a yellow spot on his head or something. And like, no, his hair is just blue and orange. And it's like, okay, sure, I wasn't really expecting that. That is what it is. But like I was saying, we get a little bit of, like, hey, Kumagi's report on, like, the story thus far, and, like, hey, it's Ichi versus the World Hater. Descaros comes through with the help of Togi Ice and sort of, like, brings all of that various stuff down, and then they make Goku Raku to brutalize her and doing all the various things with him. Ichi has been kidnapped, and they don't know where he is, but, like, hey, we get 5 color pages, which is, like, yes, Shonen Jump knows how big this series is going to be, and I am proud to say, like, hey, I was reading Ichi the Witch from day one. It's just really awesome to come through and sort of know, right? But, again, really just, like, really beautiful color page we have here, right? Eventually getting into the chapter itself, it's pretty much shown like, hey, of course, Uro is saying like, hey, Goku Raku, if you kill Ichi, you will kill him, and then I'll be free, and I'll make you a witch, right? And we pretty much see that Goku Raku isn't taking any of Oro's shit pretty much is we pretty much see that Gokuraku just comes through and just like flicks Oro the Vistage away, and Oro's like, damn, that was pretty scary, right? And also something I didn't think of, like Oro also sees this as a way to get rid of Deskross, being that of course Ichi and Deskross now have the blood mentor people, the whole thing going on. So it's like, hey, kill one of them, kill the other. Gokuraku pretty much just says like, hey, I'm not going to do that, but like, hey, you remind me of that one bastard magic that I know all too well, right? It's egotistical, arrogant pest who looks down on humans, and it only ever thinks of itself. Let me guess, you were going to try to trick me and run, weren't you? Well, that was a lame little plot you were cooking in your skull. Thinking about that damn magic really killed my mood, you know? Now I'm tickled. That bastard, that utter, total, complete piece of... I'm gonna crush it, literally. I'll crack open its skull, stomp its brains into mush, spill all of its innards across the floor, strangle it with its own guts. And we first see that he's like, hey, I'm too worked up now. Let me splatter you another time or three. And we see that Ichi sort of like goes up, grabs Gokuraku's arm, and just is like, hey, what is this bastard magic like? Like, tell me all about it, right? We then see what Kumagi and Deskross are up to. We see that they enter the joyful land of the joyous country of Bakugami, of course, where they are currently. We see this is like a very Japanese, like Chinese-inspired town. Like we see a bunch of the circular like light balloons like hanging, strung throughout the entire sky. This massive tent pretty much holding like a holy item there in the background. And also like these are like traditional Japanese style houses, and it's like honestly a really cool design. We see that some lady comes up and is like, oh, you ladies are from the Mantinal Witches Association, I presume, right? Like, we were informed you guys would be coming, right? And like, hey, you're investigating into a potential human hater magic, correct, right? We see that Deskross brings up the idea of like, hey, the prophecy specifically said a slumbering magic is happening somewhere around here, and Origumo doesn't particularly fit that bill, so it doesn't seem like Origumo is the magic that, of course, they were after to begin with. Sort of like an extra magic that Ichi captured on the way, which is like, hey, Ichi's got 4 magics now. That's pretty cool. Or does he have 4 magics? Yeah, he's got 4 magics. I don't know what I'm talking about, right? We pretty much see that this lady who is leading them around pretty much leads them into this sort of like covered area. As she just says, we pretty much see that she just talks about the Lord Bakugami, who's a peaceful magic who does nothing but grant humans blessings and joy. And we pretty much see that Kumagi's like, oh, Lord Bakugami, as they pretty much just show him into this area and like, please, offer your greetings, as we see this magic pretty much slumbering away as like, hey, allow me to introduce the most honored and revered blessed slumber magic, the great Lord Bakugami. As we see this sort of like anteater magic, I forget what these are called. It's like one of those like almost like elephant anteater type things that like goes in and like eats your dreams pretty much, right? Of course, like the thing that comes to mind is Tapir from the Digimon series, but I don't know how good of a reference that is for a lot of people, right? But like I also just don't know what this creature is called in most lores, right? Hey guys, post-production Glowplasma 231 here, and quickly I just want to say that this creature is just called a Tapir. I don't know why I could not think of it. I mean, I even just dropped the name of Tapirmon from the Digimon series. It's like, I don't know why those two things like didn't equate in my head, and like why I just wasn't thinking of it in the recording of this video. Yes, I knew this was a Tapir. It just really had to go through me just thinking about it in the time between I recorded and now I'm editing this video to be like, damn, this thing is just a Tapir. What am I going on? But yeah, it's a Tapir. That's what it is. And we pretty much see like everybody's like, oh no, this is a sleeping magic, and thinking back to like the whole prophecy of like, oh no, this isn't good, right? Deskross acts like, hey, what if somebody tries to acquire Lord Bakugami? And Leia's like, hey, oh, that's pretty easy. They'd be executed, right? Like, hey, to harm Lord Bakugami is to harm Bakugami as a whole. That's treason. They'd be beheaded on sight. We would have been suffering deep within the earth, but then our holy magic came and rescued us all. In other words, Bakugami is our most revered savior. And we also see what Gokuraku thinks about this magic, as Gokuraku just says like, hey, Bakugami is the worst parasite ever. And we see that he's pretty much like explained the whole thing to Ichi, like, hey, it's not the savior everybody makes it out to be. Like, yeah, it looks cute on the outside, but on the inside, that thing is actually cutely wrapped in a bundle of concentrated feces, right? As he pretty much says like, hey, Ichan, please help me acquire Bakugami, even if it means making an enemy of the whole country. And then we start to see inside Lord Bakugami's mind, as we see this guy sort of who is inside there. It seems like this may be the actual magic itself, and like Bakugami's is like the outward appearance, as we see this like person on the inside with like a bunch of talismans hanging on a wall, and he's just like, hey, almost. It's almost time, Lord World Hater. My God, my deity of destruction. In just a short time, I'll be able to massacre this whole country. Then I hope you'll praise me, Lord World Hater. And that is where we end this chapter of Ichi the Witch. Just like, man, fun chapter. Again, like, hey, we're building up to something pretty cool. It seems like this guy is like coming through. I don't know. It's just like, hey, I really like this chapter of Ichi the Witch. What can I say? Kill Blue is up next, and again, this is a decently conflicting chapter because, hey, this chapter is all about Norin sort of realizing that she may have feelings for Ogami, and that is really the main key point of this chapter. And it's like, okay, on one hand, I'm interested to see where this goes. So, of course, Juzo is this really older guy. He's like in his 40s, Norin's like 13 or whatever. That's just weird and not good, and that's the one thing I do enjoy about Kill Blue, is like every time we see Ogami sort of realize all these things around him, he's always very conscious about who he is, and like the only reason he is doing this for Norin is like, hey, he's not marrying her for real. He is strictly marrying her for the possession to make her life a better one at the end of the day. And I think it's a very admirable thing that Ogami is doing, but at the same time, it's also just that whole weird idea of like, hey, I don't know if I really like this, and like I don't want it to be this whole thing of like, yes, Norin understands that she may like Ogami, and is now going through, and there's this whole entire extra story of like, hey, Ogami needs to learn how to love her next, and like that's just weird. And like, unless there's the whole twist of like, yes, Norin is also actually like in her mid-40s or something, is also like, who knows, Norin may be like her father's wife or whatever, that's like forgotten so much of all this various stuff. Like, we honestly just don't know what's up with Norin. Like, yes, she could just be a 13-year-old girl. She also, there could be more than what really meets the eye to that, but either way, I'm interested to see how this goes. I didn't think this was a terrible chapter of Kill Blue, but it's really just like, hey, what is the build-up that'll be? I feel like, gosh, it's like the only thing I'm mentioning in this episode, right? It's like, what is going to be happening in the future, and then how is the author of this series, what is it, Tadatoshi Fujimaki? Yeah, it's Kuroko no Basket Guy. How are they going to come through and sort of make it like, hey, we're going to make this not weird and all of that various stuff. But I'm interested to see where it goes. I mean, I've been reading Kill Blue for, like, what chapter of this is Kill Blue? It's chapter 92. Like, I've been reading the series for 2 years. Like, I am interested to see where it goes from here. We're going to put Kill Blue towards the bottom, but I still don't think it was a terrible chapter, right? Sidcraft Love is a Mystery is up next. Let me open up the chapter here. Yeah, we have a very interesting color page this week. So, like, hey, apparently this series is doing good enough to get a color page out of the blue, which is like, hey, that talks good things for Sidcraft. I heard a lot of people saying, like, hey, this series is just going to be canceled, but, like, it doesn't actively seem like it is so far. The whole crux of this chapter, let me just say the chapter title is Ghosts Sometimes Seductively Tempt the Great Detective, right? As the whole idea of this chapter is Sidcraft is being hired by somebody who we also learn later is Mad Hell Misery, which is like, okay, she's here too. We see that Sid and Elio were hired to go and like do some sleuthing about some ghosts in this haunted mansion. It's owned by Mad Hell, right? We also see that both Souffle and Lulu are also on the way here too. And there's this really fun thing where Sid's like, hey, all right, like, we got to be here. We've got to get this mansion figured out. And he also says, like, hey, that said, why are you here, Inspector Souffle and Mrs. Lulu, right? And Souffle's like, hey, just helping citizens is a police's job, right? And Lulu's like, hey, I just happen to be passing by. And it's like, okay, whatever there, right? But we pretty much see that Mad Hell is the one who's in charge of all of this, like I said. Misery Kifley, or as we also just say, like, Mad Hell Misery is, like, the cooler name for going through, we just see all of the various cruxes there, like, hey, Mad Hell Misery's tried to make this mansion, like, this very scary, and, like, ghosts are all here, right? But it's also just sort of treated as a haunted attraction by the end of the chapter, right? Like, all of these ominous bats start to fly through the party, right? But oh no, they're actually parakeets, because Misery is like, hey, bats or crows would be way too scared. I'd feel bad if all of that happened, right? We see there's a pitfall at some point of the chapter, and we see the Sid and Souffle are, like, falling down this elevator shaft, right? Sid gets on the bottom to pretty much protect Souffle. Like, if he's going to die, he wants to make sure that Souffle can live on, right? Oh no, they fall into a bunch of pillows on the bottom, right? Because, like, hey, Kifley's like, hey, I don't want to hurt people at the end of the day, right? And there's this massive moment between both Sid and Sofue where it's like, oh no, the heart's beating very fast and Sid can't control everything. Honestly, one of my biggest complaints of this series has been, like, the character of Sid just, like, constantly being like, oh, no, women. Honestly, I found this chapter to make him a lot more endearing as he's, like, getting into all of these, like, certain remarks. We eventually see there's, like, a turntable door as this goes on and, like, Sid gets caught up in it and eventually gets, like, thrown into a room with, Lulu, right? Lulu is so very scared of ghosts, it's like she's lost all of her movements, so she asks Sid to pretty much, like, carry her on his back. Sid does, and she sort of, like, leans in deeper to Sid. And there's this whole conversation about, like, Sid being like, hey, whenever I was younger, I'd always, like, lean on my father's back whenever I was so scared. Like, I mean, I would just feel safe, you know, right? And we see that Lulu does that to Sid, and she's like, yeah, you're right. Holding on to you like this is calming me down a bit, right? And Sid's like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? There's another ghost sighting, which, as we'll learn later in the chapter, is just Elio. We see that Lulu is so completely scared of it that she just, like, hops off of Sid's back and, like, gets all of her energy back to run away, even though she's admitted to herself, like, hey, this wasn't some seduction ploy. This was, like, me legitimately being 100% scared. Elio and Sid finally run into each other. There's another pitfall trap, and the two of them sort of head onto the ground and land in all of the pillow things again. We see this is really, like, happened to everyone. We see that Sofue is, like, so excited about all of this various stuff, right? And I even love Lulu's remark of, like, man, I have a feeling that these kind of attractions will become popular in the distant future, right? Like, hey, everybody's actually had a good time after a Mad Hell Misery's whole thing. We eventually see that at a certain point in the chapter, Elio lost their cap. One of the parakeets stole it. And because of that, there were all of these sightings of ghosts because, like, yes, Elio's long hair was pretty much shown off, like, oh, that's the whole thing right there, right? And then the whole end of the chapter is Elio pretty much like, hey, I want to be selfish and have Master Sid all to myself, right? And it's like, all right, that's where we end the chapter. Honestly, I'm not a fan of Elio's whole joke. I find Souffle and Lulu so much more interesting along with... I enjoyed Mad Hell Misery's whole thing, but this was a fine chapter, all things considered, and, like, it's sort of weird to be like, hey, we have this harem series, like, every chapter just focuses on all of the girls at once, right? But it is what it is. Sid Craft was fine at the very end of the day. Embers is up next, and this was a chapter really all about Yuga Takami coming through and scoring a goal at the end of the day. We see that Inanaki, or Snake Dude, tries to break him pretty much as hard as he really can, just, like, going through. And we see that he almost succeeds at one point, but hey, who would be there but Haitani to pretty much be like, hey, it's not the end of the world if you miss, like, all of this various stuff. Is he's like, hey, Takami, I got you in our score ready to go. And Takami comes through and gets the ball and, like, comes through, and we see this very interesting image of course, like, hey, we've seen that all of these characters sort of have, like, these animal personas that we have seen. Like, of course, Takami is a hawk. We see that Haitani is a wolf, and of course, Inazaki is a snake. And we pretty much see this image of a wolf holding a snake in its mouth, letting this hawk go away as we sort of see this. And it's a really cool moment just coming through, and we see that Takami is able to come through. Like, he jumps up in the air and, like, roundhouse kicks the ball into the goal. It's this really awesome thing is, like, he just lays on the ground and he's just like, hey, again and again. And that's sort of where we end this chapter of Embers. Honestly, there's a lot of really coll stuff, like just seeing, like, Takami's whole, like, background and everything, but, like, I just don't know how much I really have to say about this series, even though I absolutely love this chapter. Seeing all the various stuff here, seeing sort of Takami come through and miss the goal to begin with, this score being like, hey, you're going to have to do better than that, scoring king. And then Takami coming through and making that goal, and at the end of the day, Embers was a really solid chapter for sure. Star of Beethoven was also very interesting for the fact of, like, hey, last time we met this guy named Claude, in the beginning of this chapter, Claude pretty much just says, like, hey, Ichiro, yes, so, a minute ago, I called you, like, a big fat loser, like, I would like to sincerely apologize for all of that, right? And we see that both the two of them have this whole, like, conversation going on, and pretty much Claude pretty much says, like, hey, you're no longer a pianist, so I have no reason to treat you as a rival anymore, so even if I call you a big fat loser, it's this whole idea of, like, oh wait, I just got an email I have to respond to. I'm gonna have to pause the recording here and be back in a second, but I'll be back talking about good old Claude Takami, right? Alright, and we are back. Email has been sent. Sorry about that. I was sort of like, hey, I saw the email notification pop up on my phone as I'm recording, like, oh wait, I sort of have to respond. Like, as much as I wanted to sit here and talk about Star of Beethoven, I sort of have to do something else first, right? But either way, I forget where I was in this whole conversation. Like, Claude is very much like, hey, you're not my rival anymore, so tell me, why have you been coming to Rairo Academy? And Ichiro's like, hey, I want to become a piano guy again. And we see that Claude's like, oh, you have got to be kidding me. How could you attempt to be so selfish as attempt a comeback? You know you amount to nothing, right? And like, hey, all it will do is ruin my precious memory of 2 years ago, where I utterly crushed you despite lauding you as a prodigy, right? And we see that Claude is pretty much having this, like, big breakdown here, right? And eventually, like he's just doing like, hey, stay dead, I'm begging you. At this point, your very existence is completely surfaceless. Like, hey, you're like a villain who's a threat in early battle manga and later returns only to be effortlessly dispatched to the show's protagonist's growth. Like, you're the 4th movie after the perfect trilogy that's just a cheap cash grab piece of trash. You're like when you run to your first love years later, and now the ugly. Yes, that is what you are. A travesty. How I wish I had never met this worthless new you, right? And we see that he's pretty much just doing all this stuff and says like, hey, you're coming back into Rairo Academy. Do you know how the entrance exams work? Like, hey, only way for you to get back here is for me to pretty much be your judge on part of the jury that's going to be telling if you can come back into the school, right? So you're going to have to beat me this entire way. As you see that he does this really, like, crazy pose where he's, like, holding his right arm really high up in the air and his left hand down to the ground, sort of, like, looking at, or no, the opposite way, his left hand high up in the air and his right hand sort of to the ground, just, like, staring into, Ichiro in this moment, right? And, of course, from that, we see that Beethoven appears doing the exact same pose that Claude is doing, and everybody's like, who is that, right? As Beethoven's like, I like the cut of your jib, that feral instinct, that unbrowed determination. You and I are birds of a feather, right? And Claude's like, who are you, right? And we see a bunch of these police people are like, hey, he's up here, like, we need to go get him. And Ichiro's like, hey, I told you not to cause any trouble. Let's get out of here before we really get screwed here in the moment, right? There's a little bit of narration pretty much explaining, like, hey, it was said that Ichiro dominated a piano, but, like, hey, it was said that Sakami went even further. And this whole idea of, like, hey, Claude is this really interesting pianist, and, like, hey, Ichiro's going to have to overcome him to become this person, right? They eventually get back to Ichiro's house, and Beethoven is sort of just sitting there, and it's like, hey, what do I do now? My audition's here in 2 weeks, and Sakami says that he won't let me pass, right? And we see that Beethoven's like, hey, so what choice do you have? You are permitted to play one piece, correct? So force him to relent with the strength of your performance, right? As he pretty much says, like, hey, it'll be easier than playing along with whatever crazy student nobleman fool says you, playing blindfolded with your arms crossed, or whatever nonsense. We're pianists, we're not damn acrobats, don't you know, right? In short, you'll play one of my compositions, and I, who created a piece, will teach it to you. And given that, how could you possibly fail? And Ichiro's just like, hey, it's any common sense that, like, if this guy wants to help me play the piano, I may as well, like, let him. Like, hey, if I'm going to ask him how to teach me, then at very least, I own the respect of using the name he gave me. As Ichiro says, like, hey, so here it goes. Please teach me how to play the piano, Beethoven. And Beethoven's like, all right, sounds good. And the whole end of the chapter is Beethoven pretty much being like, hey, Ichiro, I think there are aspects of your talent that have even eluded your own awareness. And that is where we end this chapter star Beethoven. It's good, it's enjoyable. I'm definitely wanting to see where this series goes on from here. I know I was saying, like, a few chapters ago, like, hey, I don't know if I want to be too interested in this series, but I definitely am happy I've continued to read it, because it's like, okay, I sort of want to see where at least this first arc goes. So Star Beethoven, we're going to put it just, like, right here. I think that works pretty nice, right? Astro Royale, we see that, like, the guy who looks like Mikey from Tokyo Revengers is here. His name's Kogane. Kogane asks Tarasu to withdraw from the match, right? Well, we see that Kogane's father is there with a whole bunch of guns, right? And they point them all at Tarasu. Oh, wait, Tarasu has a shield. He uses his shield and blocks everything, and it's this whole thing of, like, hey, guys, you know this guy has a shield. Why not, like, flank him from behind or something like that? Like, you literally just come up and, like, point a gun at him, right? It's like, okay, right? We then see that, what was his name? Like, Hiko, or it's like Hirohiko from Kagurabachi, but, like, a little bit worse. We see that he's standing here, and he's like, hey, Hibaru, thanks for rescuing me and my sister. We're just going to go home now with no supervision to get back home. We could just get kidnapped again. Okay, sure, it is what it is. We see that Hibaru gets ready to come and fight in the ring. Oh no, it looks like Tarasu and the other guy have both withdrawn from the match. So Hibaru Yotsurugi is the winner. Everybody is really upset. We see the chairman of the Federation of Yakuza guys come down, crash the arena, and be like, hey, everyone, the Japanese Yakuza Association takes full responsibility. It was our mistake. Refund all of the bets immediately. And in addition, here is 10 billion yen as we see this helicopter comes in, like, holding all of this money and thing. And everybody's like, whoa, 10 billion? As the whole thing is, he's like, hey, to anyone who wants to place bets as the winner of the next match, this will be gifted an equal amount to all of you, right? And everybody's like freaking out, like, oh my god, that's a lot of money, right? And they're like, hey, the Japanese Yakuza Association is so amazing. Hibaru's like, hey, what's going on? What's like the real deal here going on here, right? And he's like, ha, I want the greed contained in wishes. It seems like his Astro may have something to do with like greed that makes him stronger, right? We pretty much see that Tarasu is like, hey, this tournament is dangerous, and if I don't stop it, Hibaru, right? And of course, it looks like, yes, Shiguma and Hibaru are going to face off against each other. At the end of the chapter, Shiguma appearing, being like, hey, now, let's do this. And Hibaru's like, hey, where's Tarasu? And he's like, hey, I'll only tell you if you beat me. End of the chapter. Yeah, Astro Royale. I'm not gonna say anymore. Himiten is up next. It was a really cute chapter about all of the various girls going to the beach with each other. Pretty much see like, yes, Himari has this beach house that she was able to sort of like get from one of her people, even though she didn't tell her like, hey, boys are going to be coming along with me, right? So we see that Iomori is here along with his friend Yokomizu, and we see that, of course, all of the other three girls are there, of course, with Mayu, who is also Hanoka's friend, right? They all get there, and the whole crux of things is like, hey, look at this. They're going out onto a beach. It's a swimsuit chapter, right? We see that, Hanoka specifically bought a new swimsuit for all of this, and Iomori's like, oh, yeah. You look really cute, right? We see that Kana is wearing a one-piece bathing suit, just saying like, hey, what do you think of mine? Like, I chose something I normally wouldn't wear for a photo shoot. And also, we see that Himari is also wearing her bathing suit in this moment, too. We see that she's got, like, one of these inflatable tubes going on with her, right? And throughout all of this, Iomori is just, like, talking with Yokomizu, and they're just, like, bantering back and forth about all of this stuff. And Iomori's like, hey, a lot has happened since Yoshino promised to help me, right? So I wonder how Yoshino actually feels now. Is she actually okay with losing me as her house cleaner? As we sort of see throughout the rest of this chapter, there's a lot of sort of like mention about this, like, hey, Iomori is sort of like coming to realize what he feels about Himari, and sort of like in the process of realizing some of his own feelings that he may have for her, but even though they're really sort of like coming through, all things considered, right? We see everybody has a fun time on the beach, and they're getting ready to go back up to the various, what's it called? Why can I not remember what words are? The house where they're staying, right? And we see that Himari's sort of like in the ocean, just thinking like, hey, oh man, like I need to get over holding all this over against Iomori, but like, hey, before we get back to the vacation house, like, hey, this trip was supposed to be fun for all of us. Like, what am I even doing here? Like, obviously he doesn't know if he's going to tell her how he feels over summer break. Like, and she remembers the whole thing of like, hey, I wanted to go to this place with him, and like, why did I say that if I was just going to be supporting him? We see that she sort of like gets bombarded with all of this various like waves and everything. Earlier in chapters mentioned that she wears contacts and all of that. And we see that as this wave hits her, she loses all of her contacts, and she really can't see anything. She's like, oh no, what am I going to do? My contacts, like, what do I do? And she starts thinking like, Kana. But the name she yells out is like, Iomori. And of course, who else would be there to save the day than Iomori grabbing her hat that got blown off her head and putting it back on and being like, hey, let's get going, right? And she's like, hey, the wave knocked out all my contacts, right? And Iomori's like, hey, for real? Then like, hey, we need to go ahead and like wash out all of your eyes. And he's like, hey, I'll pull you to shore, so just hold my hand, right? As we see that Iomori is holding her hand and leading her up back to the shore in this moment, that she just thinks like, hey, Iomori, how did I used to help you out with Hanoka? As yes, she is clearly realizing all the feelings that she has for Iomori in this moment. Good chapter of Himiten, and yeah, definitely entertaining for sure. Just like a good chapter. I don't know what else to really say about that, right? Ultimate X's Kyoshi is up next. this whole chapter is pretty much about, like, hey, Nihon and Jack Joe ended up beating the A and ended up beating the 5th Demon Lord, Yoraku Baku, right? Or, yes, Yoraku Baku, yes. Yoraku Baku, right? And they see that she beats off them. Akari's like, hey, Nihon, Jack Joe, you two did it, right? Yoko Ono is even like, hey, thank you to Gates of Hell boys. They're like, hey, we're so happy we're able to actually help out here, right? Yoko Ono's like, hey, though, even though you defeated the Yoraku Baraku, or what is his name? Yoraku Baku. Even though you defeated Yoraku Baku, you didn't actually, like, end up beating him for sure. Like, I'm gonna have to finish him off. And in the moment, Jack Joe's like, hey, don't do this. Like, hey, hold it. Like, he's still my friend. Like, even whenever I was back in the Demon World, he was the one true friend I had. Like, I really don't want, like, is there any way that we could actually let him go? And Yoraku's like, hey, don't be stupid. A warrior has no need for pity. And Jack Joe's like, hey, I actually remembered a little bit about my past. And in the Demon World, I actually had a friend I was really close to, as he remembers the two of them just sort of hanging out with each other, right? And through all of this, he's like, hey, I don't care if you have to kill me. We will make sure to kill him again if he ever becomes a problem. Like, just let him go back to the Demon World. I know that he's a good guy, pretty much, right? And Yaku Baraku's like, hey, thank you very much. And I just know how stubborn you can be. As he hands over his trident to Jack Joe, and like, hey, here's a parting gift, right? And Jack Joe's like, hey, thank you, Yoraku Baku, right? And he starts to walk away, and we see that Yoraku Baku sort of walks over and puts a hand on Nihon's head and just says like, hey, a power for others, it's true. I was utterly defeated. You were by far stronger. Please take care of Jack Joe for me, young one. And Nihon's like, yes, I will. And Yaku Baraku starts to walk away in this moment. And Jack Joe's like, yeah, I'll see you later. And we see that Yoraku's like, yes, see ya. As we see that as he says this, a slice goes through his head and it severs the head from the main body. As like, oh my gosh, Yaku Baku is dead in this moment, or Yoraku Baku is dead in this moment. And we see that somebody just appears, and Yoko Ono's like, oh, it's you, but we actually don't see who this is in the moment, right? Oh, we see there's some other Exodus guy who's like very much like, hey, I didn't think I'd be dying here to Black Parade, but here it is. Kyoshi comes and saves the day for him, right? And all of this spirit energy is really just being unleashed from this one area. And Kyoshi's like, oh, like, what is all that foul evil over there, right? As we see that it is none other than one of the other demon lords, Hydraco, who is pretty much strangling up all of these other exorcists, pretty much saying like, hey, if I harm all these exorcists, that means that Kyoshi should show up, right? And I thought for sure if I killed a bunch of them that he'd come here, right? But like, I wonder, what if he doesn't come? I'm a little bit worried. It's like, maybe it was just too simple. But of course, Kyoshi comes through, saves the day, and Hydraco's like, oh, no way you came. I really am a genius. I've wanted to meet you for so long. I've wanted to meet you so much. Kyoshi Harai. As we see, they have some knives that are almost burning with a black flame, pretty much, right? And Kyoshi's like, I'm going to beat you up, right? And that's where this chapter of Ultimate Exorcist Kyoshi ends. Again, like, a lot of just, like, solid, hey, we're building up to a higher payoff at the end of the day. Ultimate Exorcist Kyoshi was definitely entertaining for sure. Akane Banashi is up next, and we got a color page for this chapter of Akane Banashi. As you see, it has both Akane and Tyson on the cover of it. The whole idea at the beginning of this chapter is just Tyson sort of just coming through and sort of like interacting with Akane. He eventually calls her like Akane, right? And she's like, hey, I think you mean Nason. And he's like, hey, do you think you actually earned a san here, right? Either way, we meet another guy who is the vice chairman of the Rakugo Federation. His name is Shomei Tsubakiya. I think we've seen him a few times, but we really haven't known what he's all about. And he seems to have like a very timely like clock-based thing. Like he's like, hey, that's my custom. Of course, Akane's feeling a little queasy after her whole fight still and being very much like jet lagged and all of that. So we see that Shomei ends up offering her some like herbal medicine, right? She's very happy about it. There's pretty much this whole thing of like, hey, this Shomei guy, comes from a long line of Rakugoku. A few of the interesting things about him, like just really not anything like too crazy, just like some backstory about him. Eventually, we see that Akane runs into a kin who's like, hey, good to see you back on the mainland, Akane. Like, hey, it's very good to see you here. Eventually, all going to the factory is like, hey, have you heard about Master Shiguma? Akane's like, yes, I have, but I want to go see him, but I'm waiting to hear from Makeru Anisan first. And Iken's like, hey, that's probably a good idea, right? he's like, hey, things have been really interesting for Arakawa while you've been away, but we'll catch up on all of that later. As pretty much we see, he's like, hey, sorry for taking up all of your time, but he is waiting. As we see that Akane walks down a hall by herself and eventually gets into a room and kneels on her knees in front and just says, like, hello. As we see that none other than Issho Arakawa is also just standing very menacingly in the room. And Akane's like, hey, today I returned from France, and Issho's like, hey, no speeches, like, hey, what have you gained from your training? And Akane just says, like, well, it's not so much about the new things I learned. It's realizing the greatness of what I already have. And Issho's just like, a trifling discovery, but it's not a bad one, right? As he says, like, hey, I release your restrictions. I assume that you've come here to learn about Shiguma's art. I'll give you the answers about the path that you must seek. And this is where we end this chapter of Akane Banashi, of like a really big thing of like, man, this is big. We're heading somewhere in the future. Good chapter of Akane Banashi for sure. Like, definitely just a very solid one, right? Blue Box is up next. The beginning of this chapter is the whole thing of like, hey, somebody has kidnapped Chinatsu. And I love Taiki's initial thinking of like, hey, if somebody kidnapped her, it would have to be Mitsuoka. Like, who else would be somebody who would come through and actively kidnap somebody and like put like a ransom note up for like the Phantom Thief steal? Like, it would have to be him. And I love that sort of the whole idea of like, yes, it is him, but it's actually not, as we cut through and we see that it is actually none other than Chinatsu's friend Nagisa, right? And Nagisa has like a bunch of like a big speech of like everything going on here. Like, hey, I'm going to be going to an agricultural university, so I won't be there to support Chinatsu. So please support Chinatsu for me in my stead, right? And it's this very nice thing where she's like, hey, from this point on, please stay close to her, right? As eventually Nagi says like, hey, well, now then I'll let you go back to doing your practice. And like, I just wanted to say a few of those words, right? And Taiki's like, hey, in your guys' final tournament, take the Winter Cup. Seize that victory, right? And like, hey, live up to the name of a Phantom Thief. It's a very nice moment seeing Nagisa here. And eventually we see like, oh man, it looks like some snow is approaching. And oh no, there's 3 days till the Winter Cup, right? Oh no, there's some snow outside. Oh wow, it's actually sticking out there. It's 2 days to the Winter Cup. And it's all pretty much breaking through all of this fairy stuff until the Winter Cup starts very, very soon. And it's one of Chinatsu's final days in the gymnasium. It seems like there's a little bit of like a awkwardness that's happening between her and Taiki, because like, hey, this is really the final time they're going to be able to have this experience with each other here, right? And we see that Taiki walks into the gymnasium and he has sort of like holding this little bit of a snowman. It's looking like a basketball guy, right? And it's like, hey, the bottom part of the snowman looks like a basketball and like the top is just like a very fun head, right? And Nugget's like, hey, look, it's a snowman, the Winter Cup cheerleader version, right? And Chinatsu's very happy about it, grabs it from Taiki and sort of realizes that Taiki's hands are really, really cold. And Nugget's like, yeah, I mean, I just didn't really have any gloves out there to put on. She's like, hey, that's not good. Like, your hands need to hold your racket. Like, hey. And Taiki's like, hey, I'll be more careful in the future. And Chinatsu just grabs Taiki's hands and just starts to hold them some more, as she's just like, oh, or maybe I'm just hot. This is like just a really, really cute moment of the two of them holding hands in the gymnasium. And really good chapter of Blue Box. What can I say at the end of the day, right? The Elusive Samurai was the battle between, of course, none other than good old Toko Yuki and Fubuki, who is now, what, like, Konofuyu or Konofuyu more now, or whatever his name was. I honestly forget, right? But the whole thing in between those two is like, hey, they're going on with each other, fighting back and forth, and, like, it seems like Fubuki is remembering a lot of the time whenever he was part of the Elusive Warriors, like, going back and forth, fighting each other, doing all that. And he ends up using a very powerful move, just saying, like, hey, you've grown a lot, Tokuyuki, but it seems like you're not grown enough to beat me. They end up busting through the wall of the, like, high-up floor, wherever they are. I honestly don't... it's like they're up... I don't know what that's called. Like, the high-up floor of, like, the old traditional Japanese building from, like, 1351 or whatever the story is happening now. And the whole end of the chapter is pretty much Tokuyuki being like, hey, it is because I have the power in me from all of my wives and all of the people around me. It's like, hey, I'm going to end up beating you today, and that's how I've gained my strength. And that's really all there is to this Elusive Samurai chapter. It was fun. I really like seeing Fubuki fight back and forth, and I'd be really happy to see Fubuki end up taking off the mask and, like, really coming out Tokuyuki being like, hey, I'm still part of your group, but I know it's not going to happen. Elusive Samurai was a good chapter, right? And that leaves us with one more chapter to talk about that is none other than good old Witch Watch. This is, of course, the Cat and Wolf's Rondo Part 2. So we can open up this chapter with Nico pretty much talking to herself in a mirror that Chami owns. It's a little bit of like a weird opening to a chapter, but it really gets referenced later, so that's sort of like the whole reason of what's going on here, right? Of course, Wolf just was in the woods with Nimue and pretty much said, like, hey, and Nimue's like, be yours? Like, what are you talking about? Like, as in your mate? Like, did you just propose to me? And Wolf's like, I mean, yeah, I did. Like, I thought I don't care. I mean, I don't care one way about the ceremony or whatever. Like, I just want kids, right? And Nimue's like, do you have any idea, like, how heavy that sounds? Like, what the heck? Like, that isn't funny whatsoever, right? As Wolf pretty much explains, like, hey, it's no joke. I'm serious. I want children. And Wolf's like, and Nimue's like, why? I mean, like, why children, right? And Wolf just says, like, oh, well, who am I, really? I only wake up when Keigo sees a crescent. I go nuts, and then I go back to sleep. Morito's strength is for protecting others. Mine's just there. It's because I'm not actually that old yet. Why was I born? And Nimue's like, hey, it's to protect Nico. Like, I heard that Nico's birth, like, triggered throwbacks in all of the families of all of these various familiars, right? Like, hey, it's your calling. You're already part of the Odyssey household, right? Wolf's like, hey, Keigo is the dominant personality. I don't have any family or friends. And what happens after? When Nico's stuff is over, like, hey, what's with that? Like, Keigo's life is his own. Someday I'll be nothing but a deadweight to him. Hell, I might just end up vanishing completely. And he was like, but wait, like, what are you talking about, right? And Wolf's like, hey, I woke up out of nowhere. It stands to reason I could disappear just as quick. Not that I have a problem with it. If fighting is my calling, then I'll fight. But since I was born here and now, I want to leave something behind. Some kind of proof that I existed. And we see that Nimue sort of like hears things like, wow, I never realized that Wolf, this person, really struggled with all of that loneliness in their heart. As she's like, oh, well, okay, fine, but if you want children, why does it have to be with me, right? And we see that he's just like, hey, good question. And he's like, hey, what's the matter? Something inside of me says it's gotta be you, so I listened, right? And he's like, hey, I just don't want anyone, right? And Zima's like, okay, yes, I am in love with you, but I also love Keigo too. And she starts crying like, hey, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. And Wolf's like, hey, why not? This is great. Like, you can have both me and Keigo all to yourself, right? And Nimue's like, no, I can't. You are your own person. You exist. You're you. And like, hey, being with two people at once is unfaithful. Like, I can't answer either of you until I sort all of this out, right? And Wolf's like, hey, like, whatever, a dumb thing to worry about if you ask me, but like, hey, I don't care either way. I want you. I will make you mine. It's like, hey, whatever, I'm tapping out for today. As we see that he transforms back into Keigo, of course, the werewolf, good old Wolf, is just out of here in the moment, right? And we see that Keigo sort of just appears like, huh, like, wait, what, like, what am I doing here? And he's like, and he sort of like appears, he's like, oh, hey, Nimue, like, hey, Nimue, holy crap, like, what's wrong? Like, why are you crying? And Nimue sort of just like, hey, it's nothing, and starts to run away, and Keigo's like, hey, it was Wolf, wasn't it? Like, what did he do to you, right? And she's like, hey, that's not it, really, like, I'm sorry. She sort of starts to walk away as Keigo's here, like, what's going on, right? Eventually, we see that Keigo sits down and talks with Nico later, like, hey, asks her about a spell that sort of, like, unbinds his two personalities so he can sort of, like, actually communicate with Wolf. And Nico's like, hey, I don't particularly have a spell for that right now, but I think there might be a way, using the mirror that Chami was talking about earlier, right? That, of course, is used for a witch's training, right? Oh, we see that Keigo's standing down and he's like, hey, is that you, Wolf? And Wolf's like, yo, we never talked like this before, big dog. Like, what's so bad you need to bring up with all this weird mirror and stuff, right? And Keigo's like, hey, I wanted to talk to you for ages. Like, hey, you made Nimue cry, didn't you? Like, what did you do to her, right? And repeatedly, Wolf's pretty very silent in a moment. And he says, like, hey, she said something about her pet canary dying or whatever, right? And Keigo's like, what? No way. His Wolf just says, like, hey, you're right. I lied about that. He's like, hey, I proposed. And Keigo's like, hey, what did you do now? His Wolf just says, like, hey, this time it wasn't a lie. It's your fault for taking so damn long. And Keigo's like, oh, what are you talking about, right? Like, how much of what I'm thinking gets shared with you, right? And it was like, hey, I'm not conscious while you're awake, but like whenever we switch, there's just enough residual memory there for me to know really what's going on. But when it comes to feeling and impressions, they're just different. Those don't carry over. We're two different personalities, but emotions have a temperature to them, and I can feel those. There's a heat to your feelings for Nimue. And I really loved, like, yes, of course, Wolf is a werewolf familiar. And the way that sort of, like, his animalistic nature gets brought out here and all of his feelings and all the way, like, he can feel the heat of emotions. I love how Kenta Shinohara has really written Wolf here, and Wolf and Keigo sort of whole thing of, like, hey, who I really am, right? As Keigo's like, hey, nothing of yours transfers over to me, but you can clearly see through me like I'm practically naked. How is that fair? Like, stop talking about, like, how you know everything there is about going on here. Like, you annoy the hell out of me, and I won't let you one-up me. And Wolf's like, hey, okay, so, like, what are you gonna do? And Keigo's like, hey, I won't let you take Nimue. And Wolf's like, hey, you think that's all you've got a right to say that? As Keigo just seems like, yes, I do. Because I'm in love with Nimue. I'm going to get stronger, even stronger than you. And we see the Wolf's just like, well, I was born from you, so there's no way you could be weak. Do something and Nimue will respond, but drag your feet and I'll nab her first. As Keigo's like, yeah, I'll do something, right? We cut to some time in the future. This is honestly my favorite part of the chapter. Like, yes, the whole thing between Wolf and Keigo is very awesome, seeing the emotions in these characters. But we see that eventually, like, yes, Keigo pretty much asks Nimue out on a date. They're walking around an aquarium, right? And at the very end of it, Nimue starts to leave, like, hey, thank you for inviting me along today. It was really fun. And Keigo's like, yeah, sure, right? As they start to walk away, and Keigo gets back to his room and just thinks, like, man, I blubbed. Like, all I did was talk to her about niche and movies and rare t-shirts all the time, and then the date was over. So, like, yes, nothing actually happened. This will be something going forward in the story of Witch Watch for much longer on, but really just a really funny and amazing chapter, and this is just a testament to why I love the series of Witch Watch. It's like, just, you can't beat it. I just love this series, and it's just very good seeing the whole thing of, like, hey, this is how Wolf and all the emotions are going on. It's just written really, really well, right? But with that long section, probably the longest section of any chapter I'll cover today, of course, being that was the last chapter, that means it is now time to sit down here and rank all of the chapters from what I thought was the worst chapter of the week to what I thought was the best chapter of the week, going all the way from the top to bottom, right? Of course, we're going to start at the bottom, of course, with, like, hey, I'm going to tell you one thing that has not changed in, like, any of the past few weeks. We are going to have Astro Royale, Elusive Samurai, and Kill Blue going from the bottom up. It's like, yes, those are the chapters on the bottom. We're going to put One Piece next, because, like I said, I do think it was an interesting chapter, but, like, personally, it just didn't really hit on any massive notes for me. Next up, we're probably going to put Sidcraft, Love is a Mystery. It was decently interesting. Like, it was a fun chapter. I enjoyed it, but, like, it's definitely going towards the bottom, followed up by a Hema Tin right above it. With that out of the way, let's start moving up from the top to the bottom. I don't think there's any other character or any other series I can pick this week besides for Witch Watch. It was just, actually, no. Kagurabachi was such a good chapter. We're gonna choose Kagurabachi as a chapter of the week. Put Witch Watch there, but Kagurabachi as the chapter of the week this week, followed by a Witch Watch, followed by an Ichi the Witch. Yeah, we'll put Embers next. I don't know. As much as I am sort of, like, very conflicted, like, I don't have a lot to say about Embers, I'm just really loving the series in general. So we got Embers. We'll follow it up with a Blue Box, like, just a really cute and nice chapter. Ulti Exro Kiyoshi. Then what else do we have? We have, what am I missing here? Whoa, what did I not type in correctly? Yeah, legitimately, what series am I missing? I got Witch Watch, Kagurabachi, Blue Box, Kill Blue, One Piece, Hemington, Embers, Star Beethoven, and Akane Banashi. Yes, that is what we have left. We're going to put Akane Banashi right under Omex's Kyoshi Banashi, if I could spell. And then followed up with a Star Beethoven, Star of Beethoven. So again, we have Kagurabachi, Ichi the Witch, or Kagurabachi, Witch Watch, Ichi the Witch, Embers, Blue Box, Access Kyoshi, Akane Banashi, Star of Beethoven, Hematin, Sidcraft, One Piece, Kill Blue, the Elusive Samurai, and Astro Royale. Rounding out, that's all of the rankings for the week. And character of the week, I mean, who else can I give it to besides for Wolf from Witch Watch? I mean, just such a good moment through and through. And yeah, that's all the rankings for this issue of Weekly Shonen Jump. So hey, thank you guys very much for watching this video. And again, Weekly Shonen Jump, issue number 15 of 2025. I hope you guys enjoyed all of the discussions here. And also, like, I want to thank one of you guys recently for dropping a review on the Apple podcast version of this show. I was really excited. So we're just, like, going through just, like, here's a little bit of behind the scenes. I don't remember how I upload this podcast half time, and mainly I have to reference the podcast on Apple Podcasts constantly to see what episode and season number I put for the last episode so I can make sure it's ready for the next one. And I was sort of doing that here the other day, uploading the issue number 14 video to all of those various places, right? And I was sort of looking through it, and I'm like, oh wait, somebody reviewed the podcast. So to the one of you out there who did it, who said like you listen to this while driving, you're listening to work, and it's your favorite manga podcast, thank you very much. That's pretty cool. And hey, if you want to check out some more of my content, of course, there'll be the playlist link down in the description of the box of this video, along with at the end card of this video. And like I said, this show is also on podcasting platforms. Anywhere you can find a podcast, just type in Weekly Shonen Jump Issue Talk About, and you should be able to find them there. Or just go to @Glowplasma on YouTube to find all my other content, right? Now, with all that out the way, again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I will catch you guys next time for issue number 16 of Weekly Shonen Jump of 2025. Again, this is Weekly Shonen Jump issue number 15, and yeah, I'll just catch you guys for the next one. Again, we had Kagurabachi, Witch Watch, and Ichi Witch being the top 3 chapters of the week. Just 3 absolutely amazing ones. Yeah, I'll catch you guys next time. This will be Glowplasma 231, signing out.